Moshi Moshi! Welcome to 614 Anime again. I am here with my friend that I like to refer to as Mondy-Chwan. If you watch One Piece, that is a joke between Sanji and Nami. But yes. Mondy-Chwan, is there anything that you would like to say about yourself in regards into like what you like about anime or what brought you to anime world or anything?
Generally, I feel I'm just appreciating someone's hard work, whether it's just a small idea turning into a big thing, but I'm appreciating everything it has to offer, really. And I'm also appreciating the amount of people it's brought together into developing something pretty humongous. So keep going out there, guys, and we thank you.
Love that. So Monty-Chwan and I know each other from high school, and we've pretty much been watching anime this entire time together, whether sometimes we watch the same shows, sometimes we watch different shows, or we'll like watch a show before the other one and then put that person onto it. So we kind of just like ebb and flow with it. But for this show, which the show that we are talking about today is Re:Zero, Starting Life in Another World. I think I started out watching the show first, and then I was telling Mondi, I was like, yo, this show is pretty dark. And then he got into it. So neither of us have seen the last episode yet. We both stopped after episode 24. We have one left. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to talk about some of the show with you guys right now, and then we're going to take a break. We're going to go watch the last episode, and then we're going to come back and discuss how we felt the ending went. So I'm just going to read the little Wikipedia blurb about what Starting Life in Another World is.
Pretty brief.
Very brief, which I love, and then we'll just dive into it. So it says, Starting Life in Another World is a Japanese light novel series written by Tapai Nagatsuki and illustrated by Shinichiro Otsuka. I know I fucked that up, but there it is. The story centers on Subaru Natsuki, a hikikomori who suddenly finds himself transported to another world on his way home from the convenience store. Now, I don't know what a hikikomori is, but I'm going to take a guess and say that it is basically a shut-in. There's lots of times in the show where they refer to him as like a shut-in NEET, which is just basically somebody that kind of just like goes to school and then goes home and doesn't really have much of a social life or anything like that.
A shut-in.
A shut-in. So I think that description was pretty accurate. So I think in the previous episode I was talking about like the transformation girl type of shows, like that trope. There's a line of animes that fall within the trope of first episode, main character dies and then is reborn into another world.
Yeah, you can say it's becoming quite popular.
It is becoming very popular. And that like I've watched so many different shows with that trope within like the last month and a half alone. Now, what sets this show apart is that usually in those animes, the character, when they start in another world, they have some type of power that sets them apart from everyone else in that world. Now, usually that power puts them at like Omega level. It's like the thing that helps them beat everybody in that world. They cannot be touched. Now, when these Reborn in Another World animes first started, that was often the case. However, like I said, they are becoming very popular, so a couple of shows have been figuring out ways to put a little twang on it, like Andrew. Exactly, they flipped the script. Andrew and I most recently watched Konosuba, which had a hilarious twist on it. The thing in that world was that his entire party just sucked. Like, they were just all fucking trash. And it was hysterical. And I know I spoke to you guys about Konosuba in the previous episode as well. Now here in Re:Zero, the little twang that they put on it is that the only power that the main character has, not Subaru, the only power that Subaru has is that he calls it return by death, which means that every time he dies into that world, think of it as starting at a saving point in a video game. Every time he dies, he starts back at like a previous like save point, if you will. Now he cannot choose that save point. He never knows what it's gonna be. But yeah. So I guess just to talk a little bit about it, this show for me was really dark. There was actually some nights that I was scared to watch it. I spoke to you guys also before about Puella Magi Madoka Magica. That show is also a show that gets very dark. Like it's a transformation girl anime. Starts off like happy-go-lucky, but then their world becomes increasingly like fucked up. And that's exactly what happened here. The show, the colors are vibrant, everything's very just like happy in the beginning. But then after his first death, when he realizes this power, things start to get pretty weird. When did things get weird for you specifically?
Honestly, it hasn't seemed scary enough for me yet, but I totally see the parts where you can say it's kind of freaks you out and it kind of like leaves an impact on you, where like you kind of have nightmares. For me, I'm enjoying it. It hasn't scared me one bit, but I do find it very interesting at the way they're doing it.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and I was frightened because, and I feel like they were very good at doing what they did with like kind of like the slight horror aspect of it, because there's a certain point when, for example, he dies after like the sixth time, and when he returns, he is like in a state of stupor because each time he dies, he remembers that trauma. Like he feels everything. He remembers who killed him. And the thing about this is it almost plays out as one of those like choose your adventure type of shows, because each time he comes back, he tries to do something differently. He interacts with another character differently. He basically tries to go about different tactics so that he doesn't die again the way that he did before, or dies, period. So because of that, we see him play out various different scenarios with the same characters, and none of the other characters know what's going on. They don't know that he has this power. And interestingly enough, every time he tries to tell somebody that he has this power, they call it like, so in this world, there's a character called the Jealous Witch. Now, the Jealous Witch is almost like Voldemort in Harry Potter. You cannot say her name. You cannot even mention her.
Right.
Everybody's very frightened whenever you bring her up. And apparently, she also has a cult, which I'll get to that later. But also, apparently, anytime you interact with her, which I'm still unclear of like what that really entails for anybody besides Subaru, but every time you like interact with her, she leaves a scent on you. So every time Subaru dies and comes back, the witch's scent gets a lot stronger. And there's two characters. They're maid characters, Rem and Rin, is it?
Rem and Ram.
Rem and Ram. Rem and Ram, they're demons, they're demon characters, and they're able to smell the witch's scent on Subaru. So that's a whole thing that's happening. Yeah.
I mean, it's basically every movie we ever saw where, you know, they're reliving the same life all over again.
Like Groundhog Day.
Right. But this time, it's in this anime, you're actually seeing them die. You're seeing them go through and suffer. They're not just waking up, oh man, I did that wrong. I guess I gotta do this now. No,
Right.
It's traumatizing. It's, you know, it's excruciating. It's literally leaving an impact on this one guy's brain, and it's stacking up each time, because each day he comes back to life, it's not as if he lives and he continues to live and live. No, each day he comes back to life, he literally dies just like that sometimes.
Yeah, his life is very fragile. And I would say that it has a little bit of a what's that one anime, like the mystery one with the Death Note? It has a little bit of a Death Note vibe to it, where it basically becomes a murder mystery, because there's some body, or there's some way that he keeps dying in the beginning
Right.
that like none of us know how. So then it becomes about him trying to figure out who's killing him, how they're killing him, why they're killing him. Sometimes it turns out to be like his friends, and then he has to go back and like not piss them off so that they don't kill him. It's very, very interesting. What I want to do, I'll tell you about two of the most frightening parts for me. And by the way, I mean, I'll put this in the description, but there are spoilers all throughout this. I'm just going to assume that you do not care about the spoilers or that you've seen this show already. So, the first part that frightened the fuck out of me, and not that I'm thinking about, no. Yeah, the first part that frightened the fuck out of me was that moment when, there's a moment when, Natsu, right? Natsuki. There's a moment when Natsuki Subaru gets captured by this cult of that worships the witch. Now, at this point, he has not died in a couple of episodes. Like, everything's kind of going well with him. For some reason, he gets this hint that the girl that he's in, so he's in love with this girl named Amelia, and she's
Sorry.
she's alright. And she, how would you describe Amelia? Because she's basically, so there's this whole thing called what's that, royal selection?
I can't remember the whole royal selection, but it's kind of I forgot the analogy they used in it.
Yeah, but there's this like royal selection that's going on in this world where there's like 5 different queen candidates. Yeah, there's 5 different contenders to be the queen of the nation or something like that. Now, the woman, and his first day in this new world, he bumped into this girl in the street, Amelia, who helped him out in like this alleyway when he was getting beat up. And ever since that moment, he basically wanted to dedicate his life to her. So this entire show is about him trying to prove himself to her. So she's one of the queen candidates, and she's also a spirit arts user.
Yes.
There's magic in this world and all those things. There's different forms of magic. She uses a spirit art, which basically means that she is contracted with a spirit named Puck, which that was one of my frightening moments that I'll get to in a second. But she's contracted to this spirit, and I think he is the spirit of like, is it ice?
It displays ice, but I could have sworn they said fire at one point.
Okay, I think it's at fire too.
Right. So I'm not sure if it's a translation issue, but you definitely see ice
A lot.
repeatedly.
Yeah, you see ice a lot. But okay, so one moment that scared me was when Subaru thought that things were all fine, but he wanted to go back to the estate because he needed to warn Amelia that something was about to happen. Because in his previous life, when he died, most recently, he found out some information about some people that were trying to, basically he found out that the witch's cult was trying to hurt Amelia. So he's all the way in this other part of town because somebody beat his ass, and they sent him to another side of the land to get healed. So when he learns that the witch's cult is after Amelia, he's like, fuck this, I gotta go warn her. And this takes place at a time of like carriages and letters and shit like that, so he can't just call her on the phone. So he takes a trip with one of the maids from Amelia's estate that gets positioned with him on the other side of the land, which is Rem, right?
Yes.
With the blue hair. So the maid trope, or the main characters in this show, they're twin sisters. They're twin demon sisters. One is Rem, one is Ram. Rem has blue hair and Ram has pink hair. Okay. So he's on this road back with Rem to Amelia, and then they get ambushed by the witch's cult. They kidnap both of them. They lock them like in this dungeon. They literally fucking slaughter Rem in front of his face. Like, they twist her body up and like drain her like fucking juice out, and then her corpse just collapses on the floor. It's so fucking freaky. But the archbishop of the cult, which is with this whole cult thing and the jealous witch, they're going after this like 7 deadly sins trope. So the archbishop of the witch's cult is like supposed to be Sloth. He's fucking out of his mind. He's like biting his fingernails, contorting his body. His skin looks crazy. His eyes look crazy. He has Subaru chained to the wall, and he's just being fucking weird. And I was literally just like so creeped out by it. I was like, ooh, I need to take a break from watching this, which I did. It gave me the same creepy vibe of have you ever watched Hunter x Hunter?
Yes.
Okay, you remember the ant arc?
Uh-huh.
That was creepy as fuck as well. Like that whole entire ant arc creeped me the fuck out, and it kind of gave me that same like creepy vibe. I'm just like, ooh, like this is a little like too eerie. So that moment freaked me out, and that was actually also the moment when Subaru lost his mind and went crazy after he was reborn that time.
Right.
But that part, and then there was another time right after that where Subaru kind of like learned how to do everything right. He learned how to make it past the witch's cult. He finally got to Amelia's estate, but everybody there was like already dead. And then like it was like snowing there again with the ice thing. And then literally in the distance, out of nowhere, was this giant shadowy figure that looked like a fucking wolf. And yeah, and it just like rose out of the castle like that. And it was just like standing there and its eyes was glowing in the distance. And Subaru was just like looking at it. And then his whole body turned frozen solid and his neck fell off. I was like, what the fuck?
That part, yes. If I knew how to speak the language and understand it, I would want to research that part because the way they ended it, if anyone saw like the movie The Shining, it's kind of a really similarity is when he's in the maze and it's snowing and everything, you know, and there's nowhere to go. So like the moment, to me, that's what it referenced. It didn't scare me, but it was like, wow, like this is
weird. It
kind of like a masterpiece to a degree.
Yeah, no, it was very beautiful. It was very beautifully done, but it was also fucking terrifying to me. Like, just such a scary. Like, I would never forget that image. Like, that image is literally burnt into my brain of just like just so fucking odd and creepy. But okay, I want to get into a couple of the characters specifically and how we feel about them, and then I think we can take our break, watch the ending. Maybe just talk about how we feel about the show before that, and then we'll come back to you guys and just talk about how it ended. So let's start off with Subaru Natsuki. Now, Mondy-Chwan over here has lots of feelings about Subaru. How you feel about this character?
I will say there were points at the beginning of it, as you burn through the anime, in my opinion, of course, he's the main character, you feel for him, you know, you start to understand him as it goes by, but when you start to see him die repeatedly and freak out, it kind of rubs you the wrong way, because it's like, okay, you are a human like us, and if we ourselves would be put in anime, we would think we're so knowledgeable. Oh, we know what to do, you know, we're going to be the best of the best, we're going to enjoy it, we're going to have a great time here. But for a guy who's seen anime and, you know, have an idea of the characters and how valuable certain things, it's like he's just blowing past signals, in my opinion. And he's not really being considerate as to what the characters, at least the supporting characters, are trying to tell him.
Right.
You know, there's been a lot of moments where I just hated him. To me, he's like the male version of Sakura. Like, that's how annoying he is, because when he falls in love, he falls in love. And back then, if anyone's watched Naruto...
Okay, I was going to say this is Sakura from Naruto, right?
Right.
Okay.
If anyone watched Naruto, there's a character named Sakura, and she is gung-ho over some guy named Sasuke, and Sasuke is basically giving her the cold shoulder and brushing her off. Like, she's dead to him, but she's clinging for him and always asking for him, you know. And you got the other guy, Naruto, who's like the third wheel of it to a degree, because he likes her, but she doesn't like him like that. So he's kind of trying to not only bring back his best friend, but also prove his love to this girl who just downright doesn't want him. Right. Sakura cries and cries and cries, and this is what the guy reminds me of.
Yeah, he definitely does a lot of just like I said, there was something about that first moment when Amelia saved him that like kind of just like imprinted him to her, and the rest of the show is about him like fawning over her.
Right.
And it's weird, I think, as a viewer, because it's like nothing happened between you two, and it also becomes kind of weird for her, I think, at some point in the show. She's kind of like because he even keeps saying, "You don't know how much you saved me. You don't know how much you saved me." And she's like, "I don't get it. I don't get it if you don't explain it to me."
But he can't because he's cursed.
Yeah, the whole. Oh, I don't think I ever mentioned that. So the whole thing with the witch's scent and the witch's curse is every time he dies, whenever he tries to tell somebody that he has died before and come back, the witch like it's like a dark shadow that grabs his heart, and
it gets worse every time.
It gets worse every time, and he has a fear because maybe it feels like he's gonna die permanently if he expresses what's been happening to him. But I mean, in my head, I've been like, just do it, like just say it. But I don't know, that's me.
You're right.
The way that I feel toward him, there were some really ugly moments for him in this show, where it's like he built himself up to try to be this hero, but then he would like die, he would come back, and the route that he would take would just be very like nasty. Like he would just, and they would draw him very ugly also whenever he was like yelling at somebody. Like there were times that he yelled at Amelia, like, "You should be like bowing to me, like you don't even understand how many times I've saved your life," and like blah blah blah. Like there's just been like some really like nasty moments where like, and I mean like as humans we all have that duality where it's like we have that ugly moment within us, but it was just like very nasty seeing it come from this character that I guess we're supposed to like.
It's kind of like when you bottle up your emotions and you just can't let it out. But for him, it just keeps penting up because he's the only one who knows what's going to happen.
He knows all the different. Oh my God! I just remembered another. This one didn't like terrify me, but it was scary. The first time he encountered the white whale.
I thought that was a wonderful. It is. Well, I don't see how terrifying it could be, but
it wasn't terrifying. But it was beautiful. Yeah, the eye part that was beautiful. Like that's a whole other thing. But anyway, so I want to move on to Rem and Ram, the twin demon maids. Now they have this whole storyline where, when they were younger, their village was attacked by the witch's cult. And all demons are supposedly born with two horns, but whenever it's a set of twins, they're born with like one horn each, but they are looked at as inferior. So that whole like demon clan, they actually sacrifice twin babies, but for some reason, because Rem and Ram showed like powers when they were very young, they let them survive. Fast forward to when they were like, I don't know, 6 or 7 or whatever, the witches of cult attacks their village, burns it to the fucking ground, but also cuts off Ram's horn. They cut off the pink-haired twin's horn. So she becomes hornless and essentially useless. Like before it was the other way around. Like she was the strongest sister. She was capable of doing everything. Once they took away her horn, she kind of took a backseat, and then Rem became the one that she depended upon. And I think Rem is also the younger sister.
Yes.
Now, what I found interesting, and I don't know if you remember this, but at the beginning of the show, within like the first maybe 2 lives that Subaru had, I remember him getting much closer to Ram, the pink-haired sister.
Right. He did.
Okay, so in the beginning, in the first couple of storylines or lives that he lived, he got much closer to Ram. But then as his lives played out and he kept dying, later on in the show, it becomes all about Rem. And then Ram kind of takes a back seat. And it becomes so much about Rem that she actually ends up falling in love with him and confesses her love for him. And he very blatantly, what I do like about this show is the clarity. He does, like, she very clearly expresses her emotions. He very clearly says, I love Amelia, but he says, I need your help because he cannot do anything on his own. So I do like that aspect of the show, that unlike other traditional Japanese animes, where like it's very like they're shy and it's like, oh, I can't express my love, or like da da da. They do communicate. Like he has no problem telling Amelia how much he loves her. He has no problem shouting it to the rooftops, to the point where it's actually kind of pathetic, which everybody in that world teases him about. And yeah, and we've watched Rem die in so many horrific ways that, like, I get the trauma that it gives to Subaru. I want to move over to Roswell. So Roswell is he's
Lord?
Yeah, he's the lord of the estate, and he's also endorsing Amelia for her candidacy to be queen. I don't really know what any of that means. Like, during the royal selection, you see that everybody else that is with the candidate is a knight. Roswell is the only, like, lord that is endorsing Amelia, and the other. Well, actually, I'll save that for when we get to Amelia. But how do you feel about Roswell, this character?
At first, I was fine with him. Like, once he identified himself, but there has been quite a few shady parts. So I kind of feel like he's one of them.
I thought he was part of the witches cult too.
I thought, like, you don't understand.
And that scared me. Because I was like, damn, he in the fucking house with her.
I do know, for me, I don't trust him at all. But when I saw the rat that he had, after realizing one of his maids was killed, and the other maid sister was going to avenge the death, and he didn't want to hesitate, he was like, look, you got to make up a decision, because it's about to go down.
There's one storyline where Subaru, instead of Subaru dying, he plays his cards in this particular order where it's Ren that dies instead, and everybody goes apeshit. Like, they're literally about to fuck Subaru up. Like, it's about to go down, and it almost turns into this, like, three-way battle where it's like Roswell, Ram, and Betty. This character that's nicknamed Betty. I can't remember her real name, but Betty is also very interesting.
Betty's a G.
She is a G, but in one of his lives, Subaru gets smart and he realizes how powerful Betty is. Which Betty is this character that basically, like, is contracted to stay in the library in the estate, and the library is like this magical library that nobody else can find because the door to it is never normal. Like, it's like a magical door that, like, you could walk into the bathroom and you'll end up in that magical library. But you can find the library when she wants you to find it. But for some reason, Subaru, no matter what door he goes through, it's always like when he wants to find her, he can find her. But she's super powerful. When he returns from death one time, he creates a contract with her to say, you have to protect me, basically, for, like, the next 5 days. Actually, they don't make it specific. He basically says, you have to protect me. And he's basically just trying to survive for the next 5 days because he was literally always dying on the 4th. And that's when, like, that three-way battle goes down, whatever. But fast forwarding, I also don't trust Roswell. He also is very fucking strong. He reminds me, I don't remember his name, but he reminds me of that other character from Hunter x Hunter.
Yeah.
The Joker one that is also not trustworthy.
But no, he is way better than
Roswell.
Right.
The thing that frustrates me about Roswell the most is that he's one of those, it's like Gildarts in Fairy Tale. You know he's super fucking strong, and you know that half of the problems that are happening would not happen if he stuck around. The thing with Gildarts and Roswell is that for some reason, these niggas are always away. They're always out on business. So, yeah, so Roswell leaves Amelia, the maid, Subaru.
Every time something happens, he's like, where is he? Oh, he's out on business.
He's out on business. He's out taking care of it. He said, same thing with the king. Same thing with the magician king in Black Clover. How in the beginning of that show, he's never around. And it's like, all right, like, you know, okay, whatever. I want to move on to Amelia. I mean, I think we've said a lot about her. What I did not mention about her that I think is very important to this world is that she is half elf.
Mm-hmm.
Being half elf in this world is kind of basically like being black in the real world. Everybody else looks down on her. They like it's almost like it's like being a muggle in Harry Potter. No, it's like being a half blood in Harry Potter.
Yes, like Hermione.
Like Hermione. That's exactly what it's like. Because apparently Amelia fits the exact description of the jealous witch. Long silver hair, half elf, pale skin, blah blah blah. So everybody in that world is kind of like, what the fuck? Like, this clearly is the jealous witch. Kill her. You know what I'm saying? So that's that. Oh, and then we spoke about Puck too. Puck is a spirit that she's contracted to.
Puck is a G.
Puck is also a G. How do you feel about the show overall?
It's a great show. It's kind of hard to bear with. So I can understand whether you freak out or not. It's kind of hard because you kind of listen to someone
bitch and moan and complain.
Basically, and it's like us. If we were to complain to our friends or to our family over and over every day, oh, we're worthless, we're useless, or how can you keep holding me in or keeping me by your side? It's like, dude, wake up, just live. It's kind of like that to a degree, but push through. It's worth it because you get to see a lot of things.
I think the other characters make it bearable.
The other characters do, and it's kind of interesting to see how the author of this makes it go a certain way, or like kind of makes it lines up. But again, to me, it's if you pay attention to your surrounding and you listen to what people the characters are telling you, you kind of realize, okay, I have to take what that person said in this life, and now that I'm coming back to life, implement it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. For me, I think this show is very cool because I like things like Groundhog Day, where you have to go back in time and repeat your story in a different format. I kind of like that. Mm-hmm. What would you do if you could do it differently type of theme about it? Because it just shows you that there are many different fate strings that we can all travel in our everyday life, It just makes you think about that, like, what if, So that's what I like about it. Okay, we are going to watch the last episode, then we're going to come back and talk about the ending and see how we feel about it.
You guys don't know how much I hate this character.
Okay, so we watched the last episode. We are back. Thoughts?
About time. I've been wanting to end this anime for, like, I guess you could say halfway or a quarter way into it. I'm grateful that it ended in the sense of completion, but I'm glad it turned out the way it turned out.
Yeah. I kind of feel the opposite. I don't want to say out of nowhere, but I do feel like most of the episode turned into a fucking rom-com. Like, I was just like, what am I watching right now? Like, so basically at the end, Subaru, his whole plan basically works. Like, everybody from the witch's cult, they kill them. There's like one little hiccup that he forgets, so he has to like correct that. But
don't know how, but
I literally don't know how. Because I think he already died from it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. But he corrects that hiccup before anybody gets hurt, and then literally like that's all that it is. And then the ending of the episode is him in Amelia's lap, his head in Amelia's lap, and they are basically just confessing their love for one another for like a good 4 minutes. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I could have done without that. And then it finishes. Yeah,
I mean, it's not as if they both were confessing their love. He definitely confessed his love to her, but with her, she doesn't know affection or she doesn't know how to express herself to people, and she's not like a social being.
She would be I just drew this connection. She would actually be a shut-in in her world.
Precisely.
So maybe that's kind of why they click, like, He was a shut in his original world, trying to be somebody that he really wasn't in this one, and she's a shut in this world, trying to be somebody that she's kind of not for this royal selection thing. I don't know.
Yeah, that's something.
Interesting. What I will say is that, so I just found out, apparently Mondy-Chwan already knew, but there is a season 2. I find it very interesting that I just found this anime, and I just learned that this anime actually came out in 2016, and literally season 2 just started like a couple of days ago of this year. So I think that's a little exciting because I do want to see. I mean, I was telling Mondy-Chwan, I was like, I can't. I was like, unless he dies at the end of this episode, which that's what I.
Oh, like a reason for a sequel.
Yeah, I thought that would have been more interesting. I was like, there needs to be a reason for season 2, and then Mondy-Chwan was like, how we still don't know anything about the royal selection and about Felt.
Yeah, because when it starts it off, they starts it off with what, 3 or 4 characters,
Yes.
and like you would think, okay, it's gonna focus on them, but they
4.
took
4. So in the legend, there's supposed to be 5 princess candidates, but we only see 4, and then Felt we realize is the 5th one.
Right. So the person in the beginning of the anime, they basically took her out of the picture, and kept his story going.
Yeah.
Then they brought her back into it. So in season 2, we'll probably see more of that and a whole lot of other stuff. I'm pretty sure the Emilia girl's heart's gonna get broken. My personal belief. I do find it interesting, and I was just telling him that I realized that they don't kiss. Normally, when you watch an anime, there's like a few kiss moments here and there. After someone grabs you or pulls you in close, and you're like, okay, they're gonna do it, they're gonna kiss. But there's like 0.
Especially with the climax. Well, I mean, an anti-climax. Like what just happened. You would think that like they would show some type of physical affection, but they only take it as far as to the head on the lap thing. But to combat that, they are very vocal about their affection, or at least Subaru is very vocal.
He needs to shut up.
And she's very vocal about like how she receives it and how she doesn't understand and whatever. The show is just very vocal and very clear throughout its whole way. What would you rate this anime out of 10?
Out of 10, I feel it's an 8.
Okay. Wow.
But only because I pushed through and I got through. I wouldn't even want to say like the middle part of it, because for me it was a great anime, hands down. With the first 9 episodes, but when I saw Subaru breaking down and more, and him, affecting the people around him mentally, physically, and literally, it kind of like got to me. It was like I can't take this anymore.
But he did have to go through that transformation period. But
He did.
But it was annoying. I do get it. That's very interesting because I feel like you were way more annoyed with this anime than I was, and I definitely give it a solid 7. So it's interesting that you give it an 8. But okay, so you guys can kind of gauge that it is in that 7, 8-ish realm for sure.
I mean, there's a lot of factors to take in. The fact that they're actually showing blood and showing how people die. And
it is very gruesome.
Kind of twisting, scare you a bit.
Yep.
Not every anime does that.
No.
You sometimes want to see the gore sometimes.
Yes.
But also the fact how they're going back and they're making him go about life a certain way.
Yeah, I will say that there are lots of different like plot lines and through lines and subplots that they are playing with. That does make it very interesting, and I'm pretty sure very complex from like a writer's standpoint. But to that regard, they're also making it a little bit difficult because it's almost kind of difficult to really track which storyline we are now following. You know what I mean? Like there's certain like.
It's like when you walk a path, but each path he walks, it's not just 2 branches. It becomes 4 branches. And then, 3 get lost, and you're like, okay, well, this is connected to this. It's a lot to keep on the mind, but I'm glad they do it to the point where he sometimes realizes, okay, this is the time, this is the day.
Yeah.
Like he catches on for his own stuff. So like
It's very interesting to me that because Amelia, even in this last episode, Amelia keeps saying, I can't remember how she phrases it, but she's like, you keep saving me. She's like, I've never been able to save you, blah, blah, blah. And his whole thing is that he's harping over the fact that she saved him in his first life in this new world. So now I'm trying to remember, with all his like resurrections, is the storyline that we're in right now, she didn't save him.
no, but
He just has that memory from the first life.
because the first life he ever had, he died I think like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
He died from the mugging.
Right.
He died from the loot house.
Right.
Several occasions.
Yeah.
So when she came into his life, he was like, okay, she's the person I have to save or help.
Right.
So that kind of put a grave mark on him. Like, okay, she saved the cheerleader basically.
Yeah. Okay. So that's very interesting because in this timeline, because this time around, she didn't save him, but he knew that she was gonna end up in trouble at the loot house. So he just popped up there and saved her.
Right.
Very interesting. So in her eyes, he does look fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. No questions asked.
That's clear. Now, if he would have held on to that first life and not fucking died.
Oh, they would have been probably up in arms with each other or whatnot because
Yes.
it was like love instantly.
Which is why I think, so there's a moment at the end where you see the reflection in his eyes of her during their first encounter in his first life. And maybe that was some type of metaphor for him, like finally getting
Pass. To me, it was him getting past the level because when you confess your love to someone, you're confessing your love. You want something back,
reciprocation.
right? You're waiting for that next. Okay, I already passed that stepping stone. But for him, in this last episode, he already done told her, but he was able to actually have her express back to him what she's been considering and what's how she felt to a degree. So I think to me like that was like, okay, wow, like that's it. Like I have a chance now. It's like smooth sailing. I can play the hero, look cool or whatever, and just she knows I'm by her side for ride or die.
I think on that note, what that moment did for me was I felt like that was his realization of being like, I finally got back to that original timeline. Like I finally got that Amelia back.
I beg to differ.
Because all of the Amelias after that were the ones that he was kind of like, that didn't understand him. They were getting into fights, blah, blah, blah. But in that moment, in the end, after he confessed everything, after he admitted that he was wrong, it's kind of like he returned to the first one that he fell in love with. And I feel like that look when we saw her in his eyes, and it was the original one from that time at the market the first time, I feel like it could be like a metaphor for like you said, it's like I've gotten, like you're thinking about it as like getting past the level. I'm thinking about it as like getting back to where he wanted to be anyway in the first place.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason why I said that is because the way I perceived it when he saw her reflection in his eyes, like when he saw her in his eyes, there was a part where, when they first met, like episode 1 or 2, and they basically had like a love connection. She wasn't gonna admit it, but he got underneath her skin enough to feel some type of affection.
Right.
But if you kept watching, I think 1 or 2, there was a part where she didn't know him, and he called her by her name, but by the witch's name, and that kind of like distraught her. Like that was like, you don't even know me, but you just ripped my heart out. So she gave him a stare. And that kind of affected his, like, oh my God, I never saw this side of her before. Like, I've never saw her so angry and full of hate towards me when I've only just seen love. So that's how I saw. So when he saw her, to me it was the angry version of her, and he was realizing, okay, like I redeemed myself, or I've kind of made progress.
Speaking about the jealous witch, or Satella is her name. We finally got a more clear-ish image of her. So the way that one of the ways that he defeats the Archbishop of the cult this time around is that when he tries to possess Subaru's body, Subaru he does his little trick that summons the witch, basically.
His one trick
where he tries to express the fact that he couldn't return by death, and then that basically like freezes time or whatever. So within his body, the witch comes, and the Archbishop is like reaching out for her, and we see this like image, and we hear this voice, and she's like, "No, you're not the one," but it looks just like Amelia, it looks like the shadow of Amelia, and it sounds just like her. So also, I see why people in this world are like, this bitch is clearly the jealous witch, because the resemblance is just like too uncanny. Very interesting shit. Well, there is a season 2, so I'm sure somewhere along the lines we will get around to that in the very distant future, because it is building slowly. Like I said, only episode 1 is out now, and that just dropped on July 8th of 2020. So yeah, thank you so much, Mondy-Chwan, and I'm pretty sure you guys will see him again. And I'll have more guests as well, watching anime with me, and we'll be doing this thing. So hope you enjoyed. Follow, like, subscribe, do all that motherfucking jibby jazz. And this is 614 Anime. Thank you.
Take care, guys.